So it's that time of year. It's gift giving time, time to buy things. Maybe you want to get yourself something, ask somebody for something new, and you want to upgrade your camera gear. Now, I watched a video from photographer Mark Denny that really kind of hit home for me because I'm feeling the exact same way he is. And if you've never seen his channel, I want you to check it out because he's a landscape photographer and it's just tons and tons of great information. But he made a video about upgrading your gear and if you need to. Now, if you have been watching this channel, you know that I shoot with a Nikon D750 primarily, and I have the Canon M50 that I'm shooting on here. And Eric is a Canon shooter, and he recently upgraded to the Canon R from the Canon 5D Mark IV. I have been looking at cameras. I've been looking at Sony's. I've been looking at Nikon cameras. I've been looking at the Canon R that he's been using. And I keep saying to myself, well, I've had my camera for 5 years. I should upgrade. I should upgrade. But do I really need to? So that's going to be the topic of today's video. First snowfall here in New York, so I'm kind of stuck in the house. It's cold. I can't stand it. But I was really thinking about this today because I had some time. And if you're a photographer and you're sitting at home right now and you have a camera and some lenses and you're upgrading, you have to ask yourself some questions. Do I really need to upgrade? And I did that for myself. I shoot primarily the Walt Disney World parks, and I do a lot of landscape photography. You know, I don't do as many portraits as I used to, you know, maybe of my family and things like that, but I'm not really a portrait photographer. I would say I'm a landscape photographer. My Nikon D750 has been just a perfect camera for me. I've never once said I wish it did this or I wish it did that. It just works for me in every way. I have no issues with it whatsoever. I see these new cameras coming out and I see my friends upgrading and I see Eric getting a brand new camera, and we went into the city the other day. I was able to, you know, hold all the new cameras, the Nikon Z6 and 7, and I'm like, wow, this would be great. But do I really need it? Probably not. I'm gonna give you some prices and some ideas for you as a photographer. If you have a camera that you're using, I would suggest stay with that camera if it's a decent modern DSLR or mirrorless camera, and spend your money on going places and doing things, because that's going to help you become a better photographer more than the actual gear you use. So that's the first thing I'll say. If you have gear that you're comfortable with, that you use, maybe you don't need to go out and spend the money on a lens or a camera or whatever it is that you think you need or that you think you want. Maybe spend the money on going someplace that you know will be a great spot where you can get some amazing images, or you can try out some new techniques, or you can, you know, maybe shoot something you've never shot before. I know for us, we just spent about a month ago, we went to Ricketts Glen State Park, and there's a video I'll link here of our trip there. And that probably cost us each a few $100s between getting there, eating, and doing the whole thing. Now, I could have taken that money and bought maybe a lens for my Canon M50 or some piece of gear or something like that, but that experience was invaluable. I shot 21 waterfalls over the course of an 8-hour day and learned to use my camera in different ways and put myself in situations that, you know, if I was sitting at home staring at my new lens or my new camera, that doesn't do me any good. It doesn't make me a better photographer. Going out and shooting is what makes me a better photographer. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to talk about gear now. I started out with a Nikon D600, probably in 2012 or 13 or whenever they first came out. And that camera was fantastic for me. And as soon as the D750 came out, I traded it in and bought the D750, which was a big loss for me. I only got about $500 or $600 for my D600 at the time on the trade-in, and the D750 at the time was $2,300. So right there, I took a huge hit. When I got the camera home, I really liked the D750, but when I edit the images, and if I go back now, there is no difference in those images. I cannot tell the difference between one camera to the next, and when I look at them, when I edit old images, I can't tell which one is which unless I look at the metadata. What did I gain? You know what I gained? I gained a tilting screen. That's it. You know, so, I mean, it really wasn't that much of a big deal for me. So that was a lesson learned for me. I probably could have hung on to my D600 for a while more and maybe bought with $2,300 or whatever the difference was that I had there, that $1,600, I could have bought some lenses and maybe went on a trip and done some things that would have been more productive and maybe improved my images more than just swapping out a camera body because it was new. So right now, if you wanted to buy that D600 used, they have them used for about $600. This is a full frame 24 megapixel Nikon DSLR that will give you phenomenal images. And you can get this for the price of an entry-level DSLR brand new. So if you're looking for your first camera, don't be afraid to buy used. That camera will serve you very well. And you can look, if you look at sites like if you go to Amazon, if you go to B&H Photo, Adorama.com, or maybe your local camera shop, people are always trading in their cameras. And more often than not, they're in pretty good shape. And they're pretty good with their rating systems. Anytime I've bought anything used from these camera stores, their rating is usually spot on, or the camera's in better shape than what they said it is. Right now, if you bought my D750 brand new, it's $1,100. So if you want to go with a brand new camera, $1,100 for a brand new 24 megapixel full frame Nikon camera with dual memory card slots, fantastic for landscape photography, for portraits, for any kind of photography. I wouldn't use it for video. That's a great price for a camera of this caliber now. It's half of what I paid for it. And just as a point of reference, if I wanted to trade my camera in, my D750 right now, and upgrade, they would only give me $440 for my camera. Okay, so if I wanted to say, let's say, buy a Nikon Z6, which is $1,700, I would only get $400 for mine, and now I have a $1,300 gap that I have to make up. Is that camera gonna give me that much better images right now? Probably not. The Canon 5D Mark III is a great camera. You can get those used. Right now you can get those for under $1,000, $979 for a used copy in good condition. So that's a phenomenal way to start if you want to get into the Canon ecosystem and have a full frame camera. A Sony a7R II is a little under $1,000 used right now on Adorama. I found one this morning. So that's a great camera. If you want to get into that Sony ecosystem, so many photographers love the Sony cameras. If you want to get in there at a bargain price point, that's a great way to pick up a full frame Sony camera. And this one is in like out of the box condition. I mean, it's in, almost new condition. So that's great. That's a great way to get started. Upgrading your gear is fun. It's one of those things that we all love to do. Getting new cameras, it's got 60 megapixels, 40 megapixels, but you also have to remember, as you creep up in the megapixels, start taxing your computer and your storage, that may force you to upgrade other things as well. While I was watching Mark's video, all of these things started to ring true, because I know when I went from, my first DSLR, which was a Canon T1i, up to my D600, I had to upgrade my laptop because it just couldn't handle the file size back then. And I've since upgraded again once we started doing video. Now I'm working with bigger video files. And again, I had to upgrade my laptop. As you move up in gear, if everything's working, don't mess with it. Because as you move up in gear, you're gonna have to upgrade all the peripheral things that you need to process your photos, to store your photos, and to do all of these things. So in my case, the D750 works really well for me. And it's a camera that I still enjoy using, and I get images that I'm really happy with. Now, if you have the money and you want to upgrade, that's great. But I know for me, cost is always a issue. And I'm always, I have 2 kids that are, one's going into college next year and just got their licenses. And, life has expenses. So if I really need something, then I think it's a worthwhile purchase. Like for me and Eric, when we wanted to start doing video, create this channel on YouTube, I didn't have a camera that I could use for video. My Nikon D750 was not good for video. I was having a lot of trouble with it. So I went out and spent the money on the Canon M50, and it's worked out perfectly for me. And this has turned out to be a great little camera that we recommend to everybody. So, if you're just starting out and you want a new camera and, you don't necessarily need a full frame camera, the M50 has been great. And, we've adapted all sorts of different Canon lenses onto it. And there are other mirrorless cameras that are, less expensive that you can start with that are really, really nice cameras. But for me, this was a worthwhile purchase. So rather than upgrading and spending the money on my full frame camera, I took some money and put it towards this camera system, which has been great. It's made making videos for me so much easier, and it's been a pleasure to use. And it's actually turned out to be a really great camera for photography. I was surprised at how great it was. So this camera here, this little M50, has taught me that I don't need the most expensive, newest, best thing all of the time, because I can get some really great images out of this camera also. And that leads me to my last point, where I just want to talk about getting better as a photographer. Money invested in you as a photographer is probably the best money spent out of anything. If you go to workshops, maybe take some classes somewhere, private one-on-one lessons, that will go so much further for your photography than, picking up a new camera. Because a good photographer with any modern mirrorless or DSLR camera is going to be able to make really nice images. But somebody who's not sure how to use their camera, you could hand them the best camera out there today, and they're still going to have trouble with it because they're not comfortable with photography yet. So maybe that's where you want to spend your money. Get yourself a decent starter camera if you're just starting out, or if you're a more advanced photographer, spend that money on getting those great images rather than the gear. I live in a pretty nondescript area of Long Island. The beach is here, but there's really, not much to take pictures of. For me, traveling to places where I can get amazing images is worth it for me. If I can go on a cruise, or maybe, take my RV and go to the Smoky Mountains or up to waterfalls, or, that's money well spent for me, because those images and what I had to do to get them and the techniques I had to try, and that's what's making me a better photographer. So sorry if this was a little bit rambling. I was just thinking his video really sparked something in me where I was like, you know what, I'm exactly in this exact same spot. And while it'd be nice to have the newest, best, whatever, I really don't need it. The type of photography I do, I'm fine with what I have. So before you head out there and spend a bunch of money on some new gear that you may not use, actually ask yourself, is this going to improve my photography in any way? And, am I going to be able to handle the bigger files from a new camera? Or do I really need that more expensive lens? Is it going to make my photography any better? Am I lacking somewhere? Is there something that I really, when I'm out there, I find that I'm having trouble with? And that's going to answer a lot of questions for you when you say, well, not really, I just want it. Then maybe it's not time to upgrade. If you're thinking about upgrading, I'd love to hear what you want to upgrade to and why you want to upgrade. Or if you're not going to, why aren't you going to? Because I'm interested to hear what other people that are going through this at the same time. And I know this time of year, this is the time, all the sales, we just got through the Black Friday weekend and Cyber Monday, and there were all sorts of deals. So, maybe some of you bought something new and you got a great deal on it. So, drop a comment if you want to. See you in the next one.